This is TWIS. This Week in Science, episode number 1011, recorded on Wednesday, April 16th, 2025. It's science. You can't trust this. Hey everyone, I am Dr. Kiki, and tonight on the show, we have got scalable meat, gorilla truffles, and cat origins. But first, thanks to our amazing Patreon sponsors for their generous support of TWIS. You can become a part of the Patreon community at patreon.com/thisweekinscience.
Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. A university that has been operating in the United States since before there was a United States just lost billions of dollars in government funding. Much of it was headed to fund ongoing scientific research, including cancer and genetic therapies for a host of diseases. All because Harvard refused to give in to political demands. The retaliation has not stopped there. The government is now attempting to revoke the university's tax-exempt status and bar it from hosting international students. If these actions against higher education seem alarming, keep in mind the many institutions that have already allowed the government to take control, to dictate how they educate and who they educate. There are, of course, more cruel injustices being committed currently by an administration that seems mean and rueful of the American dream, defunding, deporting, imprisoning, and defying all that America stands for. But Harvard stood up for themselves, for their students, and for This Week in Science, coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind that can't get enough. I want to learn everything. I want to fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I want to know what's happening. What's happening? What's happening this week in science? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening this week in science?
Good science to you, Kiki and Blair.
And a good science to you too, Justin, Blair, and everyone out there. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Science. Your home of the science hits, optimism, cheery demeanor, all the good things in the world. Yeah. Thanks for joining us for another week. We have a whole bunch of stories tonight. I'm glad we're all back together to talk about stuff. I felt so lonely last week, except for the fact that I had an amazing chat with people in the chat. Thanks, everyone. Chat. That was pretty awesome. I enjoyed that. But I missed you guys. I'm glad you're back. My science news this week, I've got lab-grown meat, geometric crows, trust in science, and touch perception. What do you have, Justin?
I have the dangers of marriage, the origin of cats, Gowanus Canal update, in case anybody been wondering what's been going on over there. And, oh gosh, I had something else. Oh yeah, fun subject, preventable pregnancy deaths.
Super fun. I hope we can prevent lots of pregnancy. Preventable. Let's do that.
Well, it would have been. Yeah, we'll get there.
All right. So that's the Justin's good news for the week. We've got so much good news, everybody. All right. As I love to ask every week that Blair's here, what's in the animal corner, Blair?
Oh, gorilla truffles, as you mentioned, and then also love songs from Crpws. And bird personalities.
Now I'm singing Disney songs in my head. Birds have personality. Personality. Boop, boop, boop. Okay, everyone. If you enjoy the show, please be subscribed. You can find us all the places podcasts are found. You can also go to twis.org to find our show notes and connections to some of those places where we're found. You can also watch us live streamed if you go to YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and subscribe and hit that notification bell. Like, make sure that you get notified every week when we go live. You'll know what's going on and be here when we're making all sorts of inappropriate errors. Now, should we start the show?
Let's go. I think we did.
Haven't we already?
Yeah.
I mean, the news. We talked about the news. Sorry.
Oh, right.
What
When
you-
do
what
the
you got,
actual
Gigi?
show part. Got it. Yeah, go for it.
We had a little rewind. Are you ready for science? Are you ready to go? Yeah.
Let's
Okay.
go.
All right. My first story is a centimeter of meat.
Uh-huh.
Researchers publishing in Trends in Biotechnology this week are reporting on their advance in methodologies to create lab-grown meat. And as we've talked about before on the show, one of the issues is perfusion. It's hard to grow capillaries and make sure that blood, nutrients, all the stuff gets into the tissue to allow the tissue to grow, right? And to become larger. And so historically, it's like you get like a millimeter of meat. It's a delicious snack. Appetizer?
It's not delicious though, right? Because there's no like fat or any of the other pieces that make it taste good, right? So it's actually probably not very delicious.
Right. And usually it's just been grown in a petri dish and it hasn't been perfused, not with, it's growing to the limit of how far fluid can diffuse through and between cells and allow growth. And so their technology that they have developed and are working on is a hollow fiber system for meat growth. And if that sounds weird, it is. It's basically a bunch of little tiny straws that are a little bit perfusible, open, and the fluid leaks out of them a little bit. The fluid goes in and is pushed through by certain amounts of pressure that should be relatable to biological pressures in the capillaries, in the veins. And in this particular study, they have been able to develop a whole centimeter of lab-grown meat. And they think they might be able to go further.
Delicious. It looks delicious. It looks so gross. All right. If you're not looking at this and you're listening to us right now, it's orange. It really just looks like cartilage to me. Like it does not look like something that I'd want to eat.
It looks like the chicken McNuggets.
It is chicken.
Whatever.
Like the slurry. Yeah.
Yeah, like before they've been processed.
It is chicken. They use
Okay, well then it's not the wrong color.
Yeah, it's the right color. I was expecting red meat.
They distributed these hollow fibers that they are calling hollow fiber bioreactors, HFBs, to enable this large-scale engineering of tissues. And historically, the problem is that you get sparse clumps of cell spheroids, as their abstract says, instead of functional tissues where you have actual myocytes that connect to each other that could have been used in activity. And in that case, then you also get some of the fibers that go along with those and a more complex tissue, which goes back to your point, Blair, of the taste and the quality and the texture of that meat product. So in this study, they had this bioreactor, closely arranged hollow fibers, and what they call microscale uniform distribution. And so they had centimeter scale tissue with minimal necrosis. Woo! Lots of not much cell death. And they think that this is going to be a revolution in the large scale engineering of tissues. Right now, though, they are using robot-assisted assembly and also disassembly. So the hollow tubes are not edible. So you grow the tissue on the tubes, and then you have to like pull it off, like that last bit of a popsicle in the summer, off the stick. And
Really making it sound good.
so one of the things, I know, right? Hey, everyone, I'm helping sell. But one of the things they think would be a great advancement is edible hollow tissues. They still say that the structure of the growth technology is still not great for actual edible food, because there's like glues involved and plastics and other stuff that you don't really want in your edible meat. So there is, advancement still to be made. This allowed growth beyond what they'd had before. If you have more hollow tubes, maybe you can have more centimeters of chicken. And they also had more proteins in the chicken meat. So that's maybe better tasting when you pull it off of the hollow tube, not really popsicle stick. I'm sorry,
Question.
I can't sell this. I'm grossed out. I really think lab meat is going to be great in the future. I think it's a good thing, but at the same time, right now,
this is what I want to ask you about, okay? Because, so I am a person who does not eat chicken normally. I also don't eat red meat. I don't eat pork. Okay, so...
But would you,
somebody who
it didn't come from an animal?
Well, so aside from that whole conversation, because I feel like that's... I don't know. Ultimately, I haven't decided. Okay. But this is really my question here, because when we started this whole journey of lab-grown meat, fake meat was still, by and large, gross. Since then, a lot has happened. And impossible meat exists, which, no ad here, is really good. And I know a lot of meat eaters who will eat impossible meat because it tastes good. Okay. So I'm just curious, what's the point at this point? Because in terms of cost, right, there's better solutions currently. There's market-tested solutions currently. Is there a medical application of this? Is there some other application of lab-grown meat beyond food? Because I'm not seeing where
Tissue
this is going to be
engineering.
beneficial in the future.
So replacement organs. Tissue engineering. So the advancement of technologies that enable the growth of complex tissues can eventually lead to the potential development of new and better ways to efficiently grow, like a new liver, right? Or so,
yeah, see, that's what I want to hear more about.
Right?
With this, because I just don't see where this is going to become successful enough and also streamlined enough to be a smaller footprint, carbon footprint, energy footprint, whatever you want to call it, than just making the already mass-produced meat alternatives that exist. I don't see that, right? So I wonder if this is one of those things that we've talked about on the show with other kind of lab-based experiments that on the surface are about one thing, but really it's going to help in some other way in the future. Like brains in a dish. We're really not trying to make a brain. But
it's kind of the next level of that. So the brains in a dish, they are limited in how big they can get. So if you can improve the perfusion of the tissues, you can have really complex multi-cell type large brains in a dish, maybe a brain in a box or a brain in a bowl. Maybe you can have better, like I said, engineering of replacement organs. Maybe we can replace field agriculture, chickens in cages, whatever it is. Like maybe there are ways to eventually grow chicken on the International Space Station or Mars. Maybe we can't do large scale agriculture to feed populations other places, and maybe this will benefit that.
That's interesting. Right. Okay, see, so I could buy that too. That's very interesting.
And about the time that we're hopefully talking about this thing becoming sort of mass accessible or mass producible, that energy demand hopefully is on a cleaner energy system anyway. So maybe the carbon footprint part wouldn't be as big a concern. The question
But energy would still cost money, right? So no matter where it's going.
The question I would have is... you almost had me sold there, Kiki.
I know cows in dishes don't fart.
Yeah, there you go. But the
It's a
the
kebab.
meat on an edible
grow your
stick,
kebab.
meat on a stick, and the stick is edible.
The meat
You had
push
me there.
pop. Yeah.
But the question I would have, that's not even the thing I would think. The thing is, I would first want to know, is it meat? Or is it like the Impossible version,
Yeah.
which is an ultra-processed food? This is not like, it's not a healthy
Great
alternative.
Great
it's just
point.
not,
Yeah.
it's just not meat. There's nothing healthy about it. It's actually probably less healthy than actually eating meat. If that's the thing that
Is it?
It's ultra processed.
Are you talking about
Depends on the
Impossible?
additives. Yeah.
It depends on
it's
what you're
full of-
measuring, right? Like, are you measuring heart health? Because then it's better for you for your heart than red meat is. But are you talking about cholesterol? Are you talking about salt? Right? So it really depends on what your measure is.
So the thing with a lot of the ultra processed foods is it has effects on the brain, and it puts deposits fats in weird places on the liver, and it has behavioral changes, and it has all of these health issues that aren't simply like caloric intake versus So these are the things I would be concerned. If the final product of this is equivalent of meat, then I think it's a huge success. If they end up having to ultra process it with all sorts of compounds that aren't normally in meat or foods that you would grow, then I would say I don't know why they bothered. Right? Learn to eat a vegetable. It's not that hard. People have done that for a long time. And I'd say the same thing to the Impossible Meat people. Like, actually you can get your proteins without them being ultra processed. Your Impossible
You don't need to
Burger's
eat cookies either, Dustin, but people do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
People
I got
eat
you. But
Twinkies
if your cookie alternative has the exact same amount of sugar and fat in it or whatever, then they're like, oh, but now it's ultra processed instead of just a processed food. Like, I don't know why you bothered.
Yeah. Inside of that candy bar, have a power supplement bar, whatever it is, like those things are great for you. They're not just
Maybe. Depends on the
candy
one.
bars for athletes.
I don't know. You
Yeah.
gotta look at the ingredients. You gotta look at all the ingredients that are going into the thing. And I,
Read the labels,
one thing that
everyone,
you
because
can't-
they're so simple to read. Yes.
Right. Right.
But as Sir Spuds-a-Lot says, this is still
They weren't a
just
sponsor,
research.
were they? I just
Where are we
realized Impossible Foods isn't. I didn't just mess up our sponsorship deal.
No.
Okay,
This is a
good.
good thing.
Okay.
As having listeners.
It's an
as our
ultra processed
sponsors.
food. It's poison.
Mm-hmm.
Eat meat, people, and or vegetables. Pick a side. Don't go ultra processed.
Ooh, I like a side of green beans with never. All right, so can you tell me about divorces and marriage? What's up, Justin?
Yeah.
Let's go from the
recent
argument
research,
over diet and food, and where does that lead?
Recent research has determined that about half of marriages end in divorce. Turns out, a follow-up study
Old
found that
research,
the
isn't
other
it?
half
Yeah, it's
end
not
in
accurate.
death. Guys jumped all over my...
Sorry.
It's not accurate. Okay. That was
Oh, we're mimicking voices now. That's a new one.
Hang on. I have a real story here. It says here that marriage, contrary to, I think, public opinion, if you had just asked people, marriage is actually, according to this study, linked to higher rates of dementia risk in older adults compared to those who are divorced or were just never married. This research had 24,000 participants without dementia at baseline. They were tracked for 18 years. And one of the things that they ended up pulling out of this was that, they had dementia diagnosis occurred in 20% of the overall sample. Among the married participants, 21.9% developed dementia during the study period. Those who were widowed actually had about the same. But notably, the divorced participants had only a 12.8% rate of dementia diagnosis. Never married was only 12.4%.
So what are we trying to say here? What is this implying?
I have a guess.
I mean,
can I make a guess?
Yeah.
Do married people live longer?
They might, but these people were age controlled, so it wasn't just.
Oh, okay.
It was they didn't just out lifespan.
Right, as you get older, more things go wrong. So yeah,
It was one of the things. It was one of the things that they tried to eliminate. Was that all of these people got diagnosed in study, and they had, I think it was yearly reviews by a specialist who would put them through tests to see whether or not they had dementia. One of the things that they had been trying to rule out was the possibility, because there was a hint of this in a previous study, they were trying to rule out the potential for spouses to notice decline in their partners and therefore get them into treatment, and therefore they would look like
they're reporting
because
it
they were
more
getting diagnosed higher, right?
Higher incidence. Yeah.
So this 18-year study had the professional diagnoses coming from those running this study and giving tests to the people. So it kind of ruled out what had been sort of hypothesized. One of the things that is not in the study, but one of the things I thought was maybe this is a form of that sort of cognitive offloading. Like, we have a lot of talk about this with AI right now, where AI is maybe dumbing people down, reducing critical thinking, along with the internet and everything else that you can use to get answers and information quickly, or to do some of your thinking for you, I suppose. Maybe there's some element of that takes place with spouses, where the other person's worrying about this set of things that I don't have to deal with. And so you then offloaded that, whereas a single person has to handle everything all the time. Mm-hmm. So maybe there's a higher... Yeah, that was just my posit. That's not in the study. The study just found these results and was like, that is not what we expected.
Interesting.
Yeah, Alzheimer's disease, Lewy body dementia, higher in married participants.
Right, but this
risk
is all
of progression
correlation.
from mild cognitive impairment. Well,
what else is going on? Yeah, it's all correlation. So I want to know what other factors are correlated. How many kids do they have? What religion are they? Do they believe in divorce? Are they, what's going on in the lives of these people? Like, are they eating TV dinners and ignoring themselves and never going out anymore? And so they are actually lonely and isolated, even though they're married? Or, what is happening in the married group that's different? And, it's hard to parse that all out.
Are they all taking better care of themselves, seeing the doctor more, and getting put on pre-diabetes medicine that is causing dementia, right? Like, there's lots of things that could be happening.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you brought up the loneliness thing, because one of the things that they've used as a category demographically is for single people to be less socially involved. Which is, kind of a...
And isn't it like you're married, you're supposed to be happier, you have kids, you're supposed to be happier, like your life's supposed to be happier because it's whatever.
Turns out none of it's true. It's all a big lie. No, I don't know. They're just spotting the pattern. You're right, it is correlative. But of course, that's how you start. I mean, they did identify that there were... The patterns were similar across sex, age, education, and genetic risk categories. Okay, so they did a good job of trying to find some explanation.
Trying to rule things out, trying to be like, it's gotta be that.
Yeah,
because they're all the researchers who were married and they're worried
something
now.
In this bucket of things we're going to be checking for is gonna at least identify something other than just being married or not being married. Nope. They couldn't find anything else that correlated.
Okay. So science found a thing. We don't know anything about it, except it's a thing that they found. Also, sometimes...
Just for you single people out there, just letting you
Tuesday.
know, it's not all bad news.
No.
At least you got this. At least you'll have your mind.
And I know you have more good news to come. I know. Blair, what you got there?
Oh, gorillas. Gorillas have been observed for a very long time digging around in dirt, and it was always assumed they were looking for bugs. Which is funny, by the way, because when I worked at the zoo, we would talk about how gorillas are herbivores, but that's been the historical kind of knowledge of what's going on, is that gorillas are digging around in the dirt for bugs. But in a, 10-year study, they found that they were actually looking for truffles. So this was, I'm trying to find the exact, 25 years of primate research in the Ndoki forest is the name of the study. And they, so out of all of these behavioral observations, and also then some actual sequencing of kind of environmental DNA near where the gorillas were doing it, they found out that they were able to really drill down that they were truffles, which is, nothing that's been talked about before in the scientific community, that gorillas go truffling. It's pretty cool. Yes, Justin.
I guess gorilla observation research isn't as thorough as maybe I had assumed it was. But then, how close can you get to a family of gorillas?
This is exactly why I brought this study. So this study was, the lead author was Gaston Abea, who is the first indigenous person in Ndoki Forest to become a lead author on a peer-reviewed scientific paper. And so he was part of a village that has been observing gorillas for generations and generations and generations. And so he was able to, he and other laboratory assistants, researchers, people at kind of all levels of the scientific organization were able to use their traditional knowledge and tracking skills to document behavior, get up close, and know exactly what to grab to study. And so the reason I brought this is less because of the truffles and more because of that, because I think this is what we need to hear more about, is about the traditional knowledge of indigenous people in places where often Western researchers are going in, or what we call Western, basically white, right? Researchers are going in and studying native wildlife. And it's important to take the time to get to know people who live in that area, absorb native knowledge, and when possible, use them in your research. And so this individual, Mr. Abea, is one of 100 plus Congolese research assistants who are trained at Ndoki and have been since 2005. And so there are a growing number that have come from neighboring villages, from indigenous communities. And he says, our ancestors used to hunt gorillas. Now we protect them. And I hope to inspire other Ba'akas to do the same. And so that's the name of the community, is Ba'aka. And so they've been semi-nomadic people in the past. And so they, WCS, the Wildlife Conservation Society, partnered with conservationist David Morgan of the Lincoln Park Zoo together to start this research and then work with the indigenous communities there to figure all of that out. And now with this information, they also found that it was socially contingent. So it depended on kind of the social situation and the social group. So there were social implications on this truffling. So not all gorilla groups do truffling. Some do it more, some do it less. But when individuals move from one group to another, they will actually adjust based on what the rest of that social structure does. Is it a big truffle culture? I'm in. Is it not? I'm out, right? And so all of that actually helps have influence on land management decision-making processes. And this study in particular helped them to actually include an area called the Djeke Triangle in the national park in 2023. And so this behavioral research, their research on the truffles, which also had to do with mapping where gorillas are hanging out and doing their foraging, helped augment the area that they were protecting.
Very cool.
There you go. Yeah. Good news.
I
on
think,
gorillas.
yeah, I think that's really interesting news. The image of the gorilla looking for the truffles is actually so relaxed and just like the most wonderful thing. And I'm wondering, we use pigs to find truffles, and this is, scent based, and there are, aspects of their behavior and their sensory abilities, perceptive abilities that allow them to find them underground. I'm just imagining the gorillas, though, just like lying around, poking the ground with sticks until they find things that are interesting, like truffles.
I'm not knuckle dragging. I'm searching for truffles.
I'm searching for truffles. Of course I am. That's fine.
I love it.
Oh my gosh. I love it. Truffle searching gorillas. Maybe one day we will not be using the pigs, but combing the forests with our gorilla friends. So research out of Science Advances this last week is published on carrion crows, a group of really smart crows that we know can count and have some pretty cool abilities. And so the researchers, where are they located? These researchers located at University of Tübingen in Germany. They were looking at not just the ability of crows to count, but to identify geometric shapes. And they confirmed that, yes, indeed, crows can identify geometric shapes like squares, triangles, trapezoids. It's very exciting. Historically, humans have been the only animals to properly complete the tests that psychologists or animal behavior researchers have given to them in identifying the odd shape out in a test in which they call it the invader, but they give the animal a number of shapes that are of a particular geometric conformation, like stars, like squares, etc. And one of them is not. Maybe with stars, it's a moon. Maybe with squares, suddenly you have an odd-shaped, I don't know,
quadrilateral,
weird thing.
Non-equilateral quadrilateral.
Exactly. Thank you.
Blair is finally putting that week of geometry class.
All that geometry.
What are you talking about? I was
that
a math
one
tutor
week,
for many years.
I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
apparently,
so I'm glad
apparently
that
baboons cannot do this. But apparently, they did this test with baboons years ago, and baboons could not
care.
do this.
I was going to say they just didn't want to.
Right. Yeah, honestly, this is one of the complaints about so many of these kinds of tests. It's like, we give you a human test. We give it to humans. Humans are fine.
Yeah.
Baboons will do great with this completely abstract task. That's going to be great. They're going to love it. They really want that one little teeny tiny piece of food reward, whatever. Mm-hmm. Anyway,
the whole like getting animals to do very human specific type tasks. It's like if you took humans into a dog research world, right, and the dogs are like, yeah, once again, the humans were only peed on one, maybe two trees, and they just, that was it. We couldn't get them to mark a proper territory. They just don't, they're so just dumb. Not smart enough. Yeah.
Humans don't rub themselves against trees.
Like,
Yeah, so they started by training the birds on particular sets and shapes, and then they saw that lo and behold, the birds could generalize, and they always picked out the invader, the odd shape out. And in their conclusions, they suggest that that means that they have a sense of geometry.
I don't know about that. That's such a jump to me, to go from one of these things is not like the other to they understand geometry. Like, I also feel like if you gave them 4 pieces of banana and a grape, they'd know the odd man out also, even if they were all the same shape.
Right. And those are all odd, irregular shapes. And so the idea behind this is that, oh, well, what kind of geometric perception do they have? They're smart. And the perception of geometric regularity, which they say a form of elementary Euclidean geometry, is a fundamental mathematical intuition in humans. And so they've demonstrated this geometric understanding in the carrion crow because they were interested enough to complete the task. So one of these things is not like the other. I'm having an issue here. The crows did perform better with geometric shapes that included right angles, parallel lines, or symmetry over more irregular shapes. And also that, here's the point to your point, Blair, a sentence from their abstract. This performance advantage did not require learning.
Mm-hmm.
So they say that this result suggests that geometric intuitions aren't specific to humans, but are deeply rooted in biological evolution.
So I think I'm no researcher, but if you could come up with some sort of task where they would have to adjust the unusual shape to make it like the other shapes, I would believe a lot more about their understanding of geometry. Like if they had to take that thing that wasn't a square, that didn't have equal sides that were parallel, right? And they had to adjust the side to make it a true square. I'd be closer to thinking they understand what geometry is.
Right. So you get the animals get trained on this is how the square the conformation of a square is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they get rewarded when they're able to put 4 sticks in or move sticks into the shape of a square in a way that is kind of predetermined. You train them up to it. And then you give them the weird one. Maybe you give them a triangle and an extra stick. And can they turn the triangle into a square?
Right.
Can a crow learn to do that, right? Can they I think that's the more interesting question.
Yeah.
Because, in their paper, they talk about geometric relation between landmarks and, how the shape of objects influence, what the shape of an object
it's almost like they have vision. I mean...
Yeah, yes.
Stop.
Yeah, I'm having issues with this one.
Yeah, I hear it.
But, if this is the first study in a series of many studies that advance on it and maybe add to the questions, like the one the task, make it more complex, the way that you brought it up, maybe that involve somehow monitoring cell activity in the brain, are the areas of the hippocampus or other areas of the brain that are known to be involved in spatial awareness or cognition. Like, yeah, how can it be actually made more meaningful? This is kind of like a well-done study, but I'm glad that they were able to get carrion crows to choose moons over stars in order to get a worm.
Yeah, I think to make too big of a conclusion out of it would be a miss. But yeah, this is exactly right. This is something they can launch those more detailed studies after having.
Yeah, now that they've got a baseline, hopefully they keep going and they do more. So I'll keep watching. Hopefully we will see crows do geometry. Build a bridge across the Mississippi River. Tell me about that canal. Gowanus.
Industrially
I think it's
ravaged.
pronounced Canal. So
Canal.
The industrially ravaged
Canal?
Gowanus
Canal?
Canal.
Go.
What is wrong with you guys? The Gowanus Canal.
It's all about the info.
You know, there's probably street signs near the Gowanus Canal that have been abused. However, do you know where the Gowanus Canal is?
I don't know. Is it near the sink with the sign that says, "Did you wash your hands?"
Is it? Most Americans don't even realize the Gowanus Canal is in the heartland of America.
Yes, it is.
It's in Brooklyn.
I said New York. I was right. Yes.
It's only
That's not the
about.
heartland, but
It depends on where your heart is. It's only about it's just under 2 miles long. Not very, at some points it's only 100 feet across. It's this man-made thing. They built it in like the 1800s. And it was banked for most of its existence by heavy industry. I mean, 100-year-old New York, Brooklyn heavy industry. There have been chemical plants and also, it's just like every bad thing that you can imagine that could have gone into that water has gone into that canal.
yeah, I mean, isn't that the story? Like, this is one of the dirtiest canals, rivers. Like this, don't swim in it.
It's considered the most polluted waterway in America. It is a Superfund site, has been since 2010. And one of my favorite parts of this is back in, when the EPA was taking over the Gowanus Canal to sort of see what they could do in terms of remediation as a Superfund site, they discovered about 200 pipes that discharge into that canal that were unknown. Somebody put them there over the years. They're unpermitted. They don't know where the other end is. They're just, people would be like, oh, you've got something to get rid of. It was also sewer overflow. Would just go right into that little canal. Now, this canal is connected to New York Harbor. And compared to New York Harbor, it's dirty, right? New York Harbor is clean compared to this little canal in Brooklyn.
don't let the canal into the harbor. Yuck.
Yeah. Oof. So, one of the things about this being such a toxic, polluted, unregulatedly polluted waterway for 150 years is that it's a Superfund site and it's a public health hazard, and if the water touches your skin, it's considered hazardous. But the other side of that coin is, hey, we have an extreme environment that has been running microbiology experiments for the better part of 150 years.
All the bad stuff. Oh my gosh.
Researchers led by NYU Tandon School of Engineering and a bunch of others got together and did some full genomic work on microbes that were living in the sediments at the bottom of the Gowanus Canal. And what they found was pretty amazing. There were...
Did they find like the way to save all of humankind?
Possibly.
No, they found the toxic
way...
Avenger in there.
Exactly.
So they found a diverse microbial community comprising of 455 distinct microbial species, bacteria, archaea, viruses. They found an interesting mix of the ability in those genes to create enzymes to break down and detoxify the heavy metals, the iron, the copper, the nickel that's in the sediments. And they also found an incredible class of antibiotic-resistant genes. Genes demonstrated the presence of 28 resistance genes across 8 different antibiotic classes, including agents commonly used in clinical settings. One of the things is the origin of a lot of these antibiotic resistant genes look like they originated in human gut. These are human genes.
Are there sewer overflow pipes going into the canal?
And 200 pipes of unknown origin. They could all be sewer. We have no idea what people were doing for 150 years to this poor man-made canal. So, where did my story go? There we go. So these findings suggest, they found the coexistence of pollutant-degrading genes. So these are now biotech important genes and microbes that could be creating things that could help clean up Superfund sites. The site is basically trying to clean itself by creating this extreme environment. Has created microbes, a microbiome that is actually breaking down the toxins.
What a naphthalene degradation. What?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Also, some of this might be
chlorobenzoate. Huh.
These are antibiotic resistant genes, but these are also genes that are probably able to fight off bacteria that we would consider pathogenic. So we have now an experiment that no scientist would have chosen to run, where no one would have been authorized to run in an open urban environment where it's like, hey, put whatever you want in here. Go for it. Keep doing it for as long as you like.
Yeah, it would have had to have been like chicken on a stick in a dish.
Yeah. Instead, they got this long-running experiment that, the Gowanus Canal is the symbol of urban neglect. But if they make some discoveries from this, it could be the symbol of a living laboratory where this prolonged exposure is actually providing a great benefit to all mankind. Don't eat fish to catch there. Nope. Don't let the water touch your skin still. Right.
People live right up against this thing.
People live right there. It's in a very densely populated area.
New York.
Yeah, but I'm just
Brooklyn. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No, I know right where this is. That's so strange to me that what you're describing, like, there's not crazy tall fences and fields protection.
They have warned people not to fish there.
Sure.
If you fall into that water, it will likely end your romance with your significant other. They won't want to be near you ever again.
And turn you into the Toxic Avenger. That's probably how it started.
That's probably where it came from. Yeah. I think that was New Jersey, but maybe I'm wrong.
Because
I think you're right, actually.
Could you imagine if it was a play on the mispronunciation of Gowanus Avenger?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
The Canal Avenger. I know. I'm sorry. Sorry, not sorry. I'm sorry. You started it, Blair.
Sorry.
I was before we started
the show. Nobody knows.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me. Just so everybody knows, it was not me. That's all I want this world to walk away from.
Yeah, I think the one thing about this, I love that scientists are taking advantage of a bad situation for research purposes, looking for extremophiles, looking for new adaptations, genes, etc., that can, like you said, these organisms are trying to clean their environment out, like trying to exist in the environment, and so as a result, they're developing in a way that allows that to happen. It's great that they've been able to do that, but the hope is that this is not the beginning of rationale to pollute. Oh, look, the scientists can have free research sites.
Well, I mean, yeah, like hopefully that's not where this goes, but it is amazing. Again, they found thousands of what they're calling biosynthetic gene clusters, meaning these are probably producing unique metabolites that aren't in the environment elsewhere. The NASA clean rooms, they found lead-eating and what was it? Bacteria that were living off of cleaning solutions. The thing that jump-started the genomic revolution was an enzyme that's produced by a microbe that grows in the Yellowstone hot springs.
Yep.
Because it survives at those high temperatures, could be used in PCR and chemotagmentation type things.
Right, and there are bacteria that exist in oil fields and oil plumes under the sea. They exist in these spots where oil percolates up from under the crust, and they have enzymes to break down petroleum. And so these kinds of genes, enzymes, natural biological solutions are the kinds of things that can be used in our synthetic biological future, right? Creating algae, bacteria that break down plastic, that break down, toxins. Yes, what's the question?
So here's the question. Now that we know we have this unique environment with these unique biochemicals, hang on.
It's easier to get there than a dark black smoker under the ocean, right?
Right, yeah, right. Also for an extreme environment, very accessible. It's steps away if you're in Brooklyn.
You can take the A train or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. So
New Yorkers don't have
do you halt the cleanup? Because at this point, you're like, sort of like if you're doing a excavation to put in a new subway and you find a bunch of early American artifacts or dinosaur bones or whatever, do you go, hold up, let the archaeologists come in here, do their work first? The microbiologists might have a case like, whatever you were planning on doing with the Gowanus Canal, you haven't done in 150 years. It can wait a decade while we do some thorough research.
So just take a couple buckets out of there for study and keep going.
It's plenty.
Get a bunch of those core samples while you can, because they're going to clean it up. Oh, actually, right now? Oh, you're fine. You're fine. Never mind.
I was going to say, how are those Superfund sites doing? Are they fine?
I think the funding is probably not there to do a whole lot of the... Yeah.
Not existent. Yeah, well, the Superfund sites, they're doing great. They're just there, right? That's exactly it. New York City, though.
A lot of times they're capped and ignored.
New York City, though, is doing a lot of their own stuff. They are continuing their Rule 97. They're pushing their own agenda because they're New York. And so, we'll see. But I could imagine microbiologists being, it's a living experiment. We'll take our buckets. We'll see what happens with them in the lab as they sit there. Maybe we'll add more poison to it and see what happens. But also, if it's cleaned up, we'll see how the bacteria adapt and how quickly they adapt to, different cleaner situations. Like,
sure, but this is also an experiment. You couldn't
what do
really
we lose?
Just reproduce, right? You can't
because you don't know what's going into the canal at all.
You don't know what know what it was. You know it was multiple things for over 100 years. Like I'm saying it like 150 years. Like people, you might think like, well, how long have we been really heavy industry? There were tanners putting all sorts of like, tan hiding solutions.
So it's probably a bunch of stuff is probably in the sediment. But the water, you'd imagine, even though it's a canal, and it's a dead end canal, so there is some like buildup of stuff, but at the same time there is refreshing because you have the tides coming in and out from the harbor. You have water moving the rainwater that comes out of the city into the canal and pushes things out.
The sewer water that's flowing outwards towards
yeah, so it is a changing dynamic environment. So clean it up, gosh darn it.
Yeah, I don't know how much the tide affects the sediment at the bottom. It's one of those things like the Baltic Sea. Even though on the top you can see the waves going like this, it's got an almost absolutely still sediment layer at the bottom that only gets disturbed when they try to.
And I bet that's the case with this canal. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would wonder if they could do
very
cores
calm down there.
Yeah.
They did. Well, they got one core that was, it's in the notes, I think 3 meters deep. They went pretty deep for one of them.
Awesome. That goes back to, the start of New York.
3.5 meters deep was the deepest one that they did.
That's great. Researchers published in Nature Human Behavior a study that doesn't correspond to the way that a lot of people think they can work with people in the world. Out of Amsterdam, University of Amsterdam, these researchers they asked 7,800 Americans about their views on 35 different scientific professions: anthropologists, biologists, physicists, zoologists. And they looked at the way that they responded and what political views they adhered to. They found that conservatives tended to distrust and basically say that, they didn't have that not just in fields that align with their priorities and how things work, but they basically, across the board, conservatives trusted science less than liberals. So the researchers then tried to use 5 interventions that are commonly used to impact the way people think about things, like change people's minds and get information across and see if that worked at all. It didn't. None of them worked.
Oh my God.
Not a gosh darn thing worked. So, hey, science communicators, if you have the trust of people, then they trust you. If people trust science, they trust science. The interventions that we are commonly using, apparently, they're just going to help the people you're already talking to. So what they suggest is that we need to find different ways to interact with people to improve the way that people look at research and the process of inquiry, the process of development of knowledge, the process of maybe taking that knowledge and using it for public health, the consensus of scientific information and how that is used. Where the methods we have are not sufficient for the absolute unprecedented movement toward more and more and more distrust. Not just in the United States. And the reason that they looked at it in the United States was because, hey, we're pretty extreme, but they're also seeing similar movements in the Netherlands. So this is something that potentially, looking at it in the extremophile environment of the Gowanus America, that if we can figure out what's happening in terms of viewpoints, values, and how information is perceived, then maybe that can help all over the world.
So, I mean, conservative in the Netherlands is not the same thing as conservative here, though. First, let me say.
Yes and, right, but yes and no. There are we've seen that there are specific differences in the values, right? So conservative
yes.
values.
I just more mean that what a lot of countries call conservative is actually what we call liberal in the United States. But I think the other thing I will just call out here is that defunding education and
Not gonna help.
discrediting institutions for higher learning, yeah, gonna make it worse. And that's
not gonna help.
maybe the goal. But
yeah, so I think it's very interesting timing for this study to come out, and it's also really highlighting the challenge that we're facing. I don't necessarily, it's not like, hey, conservative person, you need to believe everything that science says. But there is a certain amount of trust in the process. Maybe liberals trust too much. Maybe conservatives trust too little. But is there a way for all of it to get to a point where people are able to look at information, assess it, and not just immediately apply their emotional identity-based reaction to whatever they're looking at?
So, I mean, in NOCI, in the National Network for Ocean and Climate Change Interpretation, we have this cultural mindsets map where there was all this social science research done on ways to talk about things related to either science or climate change or actually environmental justice now, and productive and unproductive areas of conversation. And one of the unproductive areas of conversation is scientists say. And it's because of this. It's because there is a fundamental disjoint on what science stands for and how it works. And so it's by stating scientific authority as a reason to believe in something, you alienate a group of people, because it's just the way it is, right? This is exactly what you're talking about, Kiki. There's all these interventions were attempted and didn't work. So instead of appealing to scientific authority, you need to appeal to a reasonable tone and shared values, which is the whole point of the NOCI situation. Is, maybe you don't believe in climate change, but maybe you're a duck hunter and you care about preserving wetlands for the sake of having a place to hunt your ducks, right?
I want to hunt more ducks. Yeah.
You care about wetlands and I care about wetlands for different reasons, but we both care about wetlands, right? So I think that's where you need to, unfortunately, we have some scientific research to show us kind of how to get the door open to these larger conversations, that over time you can kind of chip away at that anti-science rhetoric, but to try to hit at it head on is really, it's impossible.
And I'm
at the point now, I think we just need to lie to them.
No. What?
Yeah, I think.
You can say things that are true.
Once you identify somebody as a conservative, you should just lie to them, because that's what seems to work. That's what they seem to believe, is lies that fit whatever they want. And so you have to craft the lie in a way that's beneficial to you. But I think there's certain people out there at this point that will believe lies over truth, and so you just pick better lies than they're being told.
So part of this is...
So for instance, and I'll give you an example of this, that it's not exactly a lie, but it wasn't exactly telling the truth. I got into this conversation with an anti-vax person.
There are a lot of them.
Who was talking about the mercury thing. And I pointed out, hey, the mercury...
They've taken it out of a lot of flu vaccines.
Yeah, it's not in there.
It's not biologically active. It's not...
Right. But autism cases went up. Hey, you know what else went up? Processed foods. Maybe that's the culprit. And then they started talking about that. So here's the thing.
Yoga.
Hey, I'm not saying you don't use some truth in the world, put some truth in there, but there's some people you're just going to have to get focused on a different correlative thing and tell them it's the truth, because they're just not going to be fact-based. And once you accept they're not fact-based people, you just got to give them other...
It's not facts. It's emotion.
You got to give them a little bit of the Gowanus Canal.
You have to relate to people. So here's the, like what you're saying, Blair, with relating to people, like connecting on a human emotional, like what do you have in common? Oh, I like peas. Do you like peas? Oh no, you like broccoli? I love broccoli. You know, like you connect on that kind of a level first, and then you find out, you play it, you get to know people. And when you know people, you're more likely to be trusted. And one of the big things that is being addressed right now is the idea that science happens separate from so many of us in society. Science is facts. Science is this podcast. You know, the thing I think our podcast does better than others is that we talk about this stuff. We talk about, you know, questions and ways and different ways to look at things, and, you know, problems with methods, and, you know, things that people are doing well. Like, hey, great job using the Gowanus Canal. Awesome. But many people are disconnected from science as a process, as a way of building knowledge, as more than just the things that they're told. And so after a while, even though they love authority, they get tired of the authority that is coming from someplace that they don't like. Oh, you're not the right authority. So scientists say, you're from those woke liberal institutions. Right. Yes. So no, I don't trust that. I don't believe that, and I never will. So you have to get past that by, as a scientist or communicator or neighbor, being part of the community. Being there, having conversations, knowing what they're dealing with in their lives, finding out what impacts them, and maybe not trying to change the mind of the adult grown human person who is so locked into their viewpoint, but maybe the kid down the street who, you know, if you give him a book, maybe he'll read it. You know, if you open a door, maybe they'll walk through it. So, you know, there are different audiences. There are different groups. The public is so diverse, and that needs to be taken into account. I don't know. I just feel lucky people listen to this podcast. Hi, everyone.
I think if you really want to save democracy, you need to start putting out a lot more ghost stories, alien abduction footage. Get people focused on different lies that they're going to absorb.
And the physics and geometry involved in alien space and time travel.
You leave all of that out and just give them lies, and they'll be happy. They'll be happy being mad that the government is hiding the alien spacecraft.
Okay.
And they won't.
So here's the thing. Kevin Reardon, you nailed it. Oh my gosh. Phrase it so they come up with the conclusion. You can give them a path, but don't take them to the end. Exactly. Oh my gosh. That's exactly part of it as well. Yeah. Let them get there themselves.
And when they come back to you with, but the emails, they're eating the cats. Yes, the aliens are. That's the thing they didn't tell you. It's the aliens that are eating the...
But apparently not aliens. It's going to be AI avatars that get people to trust science, because some other researchers did some work and they were like, hey, look, people actually like these realistic AI avatars. It's so weird. We tried all sorts of like realistic, really hyper realistic, cartoonish ones and looked to see which ones were more trusted. And in Germany, 500 German participants selected to reflect the population in terms of age, gender, and education. They love realistic AI avatars telling them about science. And men were trusted a little bit more than women, these male versus female avatars. But in Germany, apparently they don't like cartoons. They like realistic AI-produced avatars to tell them about science. And the participants viewed videos with these avatars and assessed perceived competence, integrity, and benevolence, reflecting perceived trustworthiness. And there was no uncanny valley. And like I said, male avatars were more competent, but no differences were found in terms of integrity or benevolence.
Are you going to show us?
Well, What? No, I don't have a video, unfortunately. I wish I
man.
had a video. Like, that would be the best thing ever. But this paper, potentially, I will be able to get it. This has not been released yet. It will appear in the Journal of Science Communications, so it's not out yet. But yeah, so videos on TikTok, those fake voices, avatars, etc. I don't know. There's uncanny valley for me in things. I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, that's what I was gonna say. Is show me the picture. We'll see about that valley.
Yeah,
I don't know.
We will see. Lead them to the uncanny valley, and let them choose. This is This Week in Science. Thanks for joining us for this very long first part of the show. And it is wonderful to have you here. Thank you for joining us. If you are enjoying the show, please tell others about it. Send the link right now. Either if it's YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, whatever, send a link to your friends. Go, hey, check this out. Go watch this. Go listen to this. That would be very helpful. If you're in a podcast, a lot of podcast apps allow you to share the episode or our channel with your friends. Please do that. That would be really helpful. Additionally, if you head over to TWIS.org and you'd like to be part of supporting the show in an ongoing fashion, click on the Patreon link. You can go to our Patreon community, choose your level of support, and that will allow you at $10 or more per month to hear your name probably mispronounced at the end of the show as I hopelessly stutter over various names. I really do try. There's a lot of names. I really do try. Doesn't matter how many times I do it. Head over to Zazzle, click on the Zazzle link at twist.org, and that will take you to our Zazzle store. Make sure you buy some goodie for yourself or a friend with Blair's art on it, because she's made so many cool things. Like, maybe you need like a cool shirt for your summer. Like, it's kind of like a Hawaiian shirt, except it's a Blair animal shirt, and that would be kind of cool. Someday when we have an in-person gathering to celebrate everything and all of you, I want all of you to wear your Blair Animal Corner, not really a Hawaiian shirt, Hawaiian shirts. Are we ready to come back? Thank you for joining us. We can't do this without you. Thank you for your support. And now, so glad Blair's here, because I get to say, it's time for Blair's Animal Corner with Blair.
Dogs are creatures, great and small. Biped, millipede, no pet at all. If you want to hear about animals, she's your girl. Except for giant pandas and squirrels. There's Animal Corner.
What you got, Blair?
Fiddler crabs. This is a study from University of Oxford, and they were listening to the courtship displays of fiddler crabs using geophones. So let me tell you about fiddler crab courtship. For male fiddler crabs, they use vibrational signals as part of their courtship. They drum the ground using their oversized claw. They hit the floor with their shells. And up until now, it's been unclear how effectively these signals send information to females on how big and strong and impressive the males are. Like, if you're a really good drummer, does that mean that you have a really big claw? Or does it just mean that you're a good drummer? And so is it an accurate signal to the female? Because the females are trying to select for the biggest, strongest, biggest clawed male. So researchers from the University of Oxford's Animal Vibration Lab, that sounds like a very cool place to be, assessed the courtship behavior of European fiddler crabs. And they're found in the southern mudflats of the Iberian Peninsula. Not a bad place to do your research, I think.
No, that's pretty cool.
They recorded the male crab's behavior using both GoPro cameras and geophones so that they could precisely record acoustic vibration. They wanted to know how seismic signals are affected by the signaler's size to see if it was an honest display. And so they found a repetitive 4-step routine in their courtship, which I love. So they got their 4 steps. So first, they subtly wave their oversized claw. Hey, look at my big claw. Then they have sequential waving and body drops. They're dropping it like it's hot to produce a vibrational signal. So that's what they're banging their shell into the sand. And then they do these things simultaneously. They wave and drop at the same time. And then finally, they do an underground drumming display if the female approaches the burrow. So they go inside and then they drum. And at each step, the seismic energy intensifies. They measured 8,000 percussive seismic signal recordings. 8,000! Those giant claws. Then he runs inside. Is she coming? Males with larger claws produced higher energy seismic signals with higher amplitude drumming spikes. So they had to be honest about their size. There was no bluffing here. The seismic vibrations were directly related to how big the claw was. So the females could really count on that as an honest signal when they're doing their sexual selection. Maybe in 10,000 years things might be different, but for right now, in terms of the evolutionary arms race between males and females,
and start installing subwoofers in the little crab hovel.
That's how evolution works, right? Like the females are getting an honest signal. The males, only the biggest clawed males are indicating that they have the big claws. So the only way that smaller claws are going to prevail is if those small clawed males find ways to woo females. So how they do that, who knows? How evolution will progress, who knows? I think it's a good time to remind everybody we're in the middle of it. This isn't the end. We're not looking backwards at all of evolutionary time and going, and that's where that ended up, and that's where that ended up. No, we are in the midst of evolutionary time. Things are going to continue beyond today and change and evolve and mutate.
But I mean, is the big claw all there is to the status of a male? What if they have an amazing brain?
Yeah.
What if they're able to do other things?
Well, crabs are not well known for their brains.
I mean, their brains are not really a brain. It's more of a mass of neurons. Crabs,
I think
spiders are related, yeah?
Yes, yeah.
So I'm really enjoying the drumming behavior related to what we know about spiders who drum on their webs.
Yes, what an excellent connection. Absolutely, so cool. Yeah. So, I mean, for crabs, they're tridivores. They don't need to compete for food very much. They're just eating whatever stuff is around. They're competing for mates. They are competing for space. They are competing for burrows. That's really it. And so for these fiddler crabs, it's all down to the claw. The biggest claws win the best burrows, win the best locations, win the best girls. That's it. So at this point in evolutionary time, that is the most important sexual signal as far as we know for what is the best quality sperm is the big claw. How
well the fiddlers drum. Okay.
Yes. That's why they're called fiddler crabs, because they drum, right? No. Incorrect. No. So what's interesting is, this is a sound lab or a vibration lab, so they had to get nerdy on the vibration science. So let me just tell you a little bit about that. The frequency of the vibrations were constant. The frequency was constant. So like the pitch, I guess, of the sound, right? But the length, the rhythm, and the loudness of the signals all varied depending on the courtship behavior. So here is the other piece, Kiki, is artistic license.
Okay.
So you could distinguish different behaviors, body drops versus drumming based on seismic readings alone. But it also meant that different crabs had different styles, right? They were also able to train a machine learning program to automatically classify behaviors with up to 70% accuracy. So the machine learning program could also go, oh, he's dropping his body on the floor, he's drumming, which I appreciate that multiple times in this study they mentioned it as machine learning and not AI. So they're using the right words, which
accuracy is
cool
great. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but to your point, Kiki, also they do mention at the end, advantages are only observed for the percussive signals such as drumming. Fortunately for smaller clawed crabs, that's only part of the courtship routine. So there are additional pieces, but this is the initial attention-getting display, right? This is like the first hurdle to get through to get a female's attention. And for this, it really is all about the claw.
But maybe with these other behaviors, they can do other things well that are part of if they get past that first hurdle, maybe they're, not the biggest claw, but, an okay claw. And maybe that leads to observation of other behaviors that are indicative of stature and quality.
I love watching crabs. They're so funny.
I can imagine you like at the beach, just watching crabs, just sitting there watching crabs. It would be kind of fun.
Oh, I love it. I've definitely done that before. Just watched crabs, of course. And moving on from one sexual signal to another, let's talk about birds.
Yay, okay.
Yes. Bird personalities shining through song. So this is from Flinders University Animal Behavior Experts. And this is a study published in the journal Royal Society Open Science. Now, this was studying wild superb fairy wrens.
They're so pretty. I love these
They're very
birds.
pretty. Also, importantly, both sexes learn to produce complex songs. And at least according to those reporting on this research, very few studies have explored the relationship between individual personality and song complexity, and none of those have investigated this in females.
Of course, right, because females don't usually produce songs, so they're just receivers.
Why do they matter? Yeah. They're just passive, and we know that's not true.
If the receiver didn't matter, why would there be variation?
Right, exactly. So that's why I'm knocking stuff over. So
like
that is why this study kind of caught my eye, because looking at individual personality related to song complexity is interesting to begin with, but the extra layer is, and what about the ladies? So researchers examined the relationship between song complexity and two personality traits, exploration and aggressiveness, in these wild superb fairy wrens. Individuals that were more exploratory had more element types to their song, which could be explained by the possibility that more exploratory birds approach and learn from a wider variety of tutors. So because they're more exploratory, they're exposed to more song types from more individuals, and so they can incorporate those into them. And then more aggressive individuals produce songs with fewer syllables, and more aggressive fledglings, but not adults, had more element types per song. Didn't really go into why that could maybe be. I don't know. Their aggression is clouding their creativity. I can't really tell you. But this is showing how learned aspects of sexual signaling are personality dependent. So the way that they measured this, they had to measure exploration and they had to measure aggressiveness. So they captured some birds from the wild. They measured their personality in short-term captivity stays, and then they released them. They measured exploration by placing them in a novel environment test. So basically, do they explore new things in the lab? And their aggressiveness via a mirror test. Do you attack yourself in the mirror? And measured those, and then they released them. And then they recorded their songs as they were, or after they were released, over several months to assess the individual variation in song complexity. They looked at element types per song, syllables per song, all of that in relation to personality. And they found there was a difference. Kiki, you're making a face. Tell me about it.
Right, I'm looking at these figures that are in the paper, and they're,
this is why I brought this. Give me the dish.
It's just so widely distributed, and they're like, yeah, there's a trend, and yeah,
If you
maybe
put a
there's
line down the middle and just focus on the line,
Yeah.
is totally,
right?
yeah.
It's just like all over the
Yeah,
place.
is the
Maybe
statistics anything? Good question.
Yeah.
What's your
are the
p-value?
statistics- Exactly. So how many individuals, how many recordings, what's your p-value? Like, what is the actual statistical significance of your test? Because what I think is going on here is like it's kind of, and they're zhuzhing their results. It just, this image, syllables per song, like there seems to be a central like massing, but element types, like it's,
yeah, where would you, if you were to take out the outliers,
and aggression is all over the place,
you would have to get rid of
everything.
What? Yeah. Actually, in this one, I think the key feature is that actually nothing was on the line. That's actually kind of impressive. It's hard to do with that many plots to have nothing touching the line.
Yeah. So what you do is you usually, with statistics and your data, you graph stuff first, and you go, "What does it look like? Oh, does it look like we have a relationship? Okay." I mean, and maybe if you start ahead of time, like you're like, we're going to test using these statistical tests. We've designed the study so that we have this number of samples, this number of individuals, blah, 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 blah. And you basically say, this is how we're going to test it. And we'll know if it's significant or not, if it reaches X, whatever it is. I haven't seen the p-values. I haven't seen the statistical tests that they're doing.
Yeah,
I haven't
I'm trying
looked
to
at
look at it
in the results, but just looking at their graphs, I'm having issues.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm really glad you brought this up. So the sample size is large. It's 1,000 songs from 102 individuals. It's not humongous, but it's a good size sample. 40 females, 62 males, 76 adults, 26 juveniles.
Okay, so here what we're looking at is they've masked everyone. They've included males and females. Mm-hmm. They are not, which makes me think that maybe they tested it, which is kind of like, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to like go with, we'll test this. Oh no, we'll take that variable out and then test it again for significance. Like, you're not supposed to do that.
What you're witnessing is Kiki in her natural environment as a scientist.
I know. 0 to 160 seconds spent near the mirror. The mean is 45 plus or minus 4 point whatever.
So in the results section, I'm really appreciating that this is open access. Exploration behavior did not predict the number of syllables per song. Right. More aggressive individuals had fewer syllables per song. Regardless of personality phenotype, fledglings had fewer syllables per song than adults, and males had fewer syllables per song than females. So they're using these like very wide spread statements that are very factual sounding, right? The number of syllables per song was not predicted by the number of songs recorded per individual. The random effect, territory ID, significantly accounted for variance in syllables per song. Variance, P equals 0.005. So, like,
linear mixed models, they're using backward stepwise removal of non-significant interaction terms. Mm-hmm. Full models and reduced models. They did test sex, male and female. Nothing.
So what we're
Nothing.
seeing is there appears to be some differences, but they're nudges. They don't appear to be huge. And what I would say is, hey, this is a really cool study where they tested males and females. They tested personality traits against songs. Do more of this, please. Give me more data. Do it with more birds. Do it with more species. Do it with more behaviors. See what you can find.
Yeah, so they've got aggressiveness, and life stage. So fledglings are less aggressive than adults. Duh. Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing. Okay, I gotta go to share screen so you can see the table that I'm looking at right now. This is seriously one of those moments where I'm looking.
Duh is meaning a result that was highly expected and anticipated, proving to be the highly anticipated and expected result. Duh.
4 interaction terms as fixed effects. Yeah, territory ID as a random effect. They've got significant effects. So the intercept, that's nothing. Aggressiveness, nothing. Sex, nothing. Life stage, nothing. Exploration and sex, nothing. Aggressiveness, nothing. Number of songs recorded. So they have, the more songs they recorded, it wasn't, what is 0.02 for aggressiveness and life stage. Yes, fledglings are not going to be as aggressive as adults.
Right.
Exploration with the reduced model where they nudged and it only did element types per song. So element types per song are related to exploration apparently, and aggressiveness and life stage, which implies that it's the adults who have more syllables because they're older and they've learned more, and they're also more aggressive. Yeah, like oh my God, I have so many problems with the statistics here.
This is interesting.
Like, so, okay. This is one of those studies where it's like they do more, like it's hard.
So,
this is the fairy wrens. They're not in laboratories. You got to go do this as field work. You got to come up with a paper to write for, your dissertation, and you have to make everything look important.
It sounded great, and I appreciate that you opened the source material to kind of look at what was actually going on, because this is where science is actually happening, is when you look at the receipts.
And they only had 2 independent observers score the element types for the songs, which means they had 2 people go, oh yeah, that is the element in the song. Yeah, that's the element in the song.
Right. See, this sounds like a good time to teach a machine learning.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad they used people, but they should have had more people score the songs. I have a Spearman's correlation test. I need to go back to my stats textbook, but yeah. I'm glad they included females. The stats are bugging me. Congratulations. Fairy wrens are awesome. I'm glad they did the study. Go do more.
Yeah, go do more.
Oh my God. I did so much stats in grad school because my stats, I knew they were, my advisors said, do it this way. And I was like, there's something, it's wrong. And so like, I actually ended up like basically doing a bunch of independent study into non-parametric and parametric statistics, ANOVA methods, and all sorts of things to finally realize that I had not done studies with actually enough samples or, enough replication to be able to be significant. And I should have set that up ahead of time, and I didn't. And I was like, and so then I had to be like, this is a descriptive study, some results were not published. They're in my dissertation, but they were not published. Aside from that,
But okay. So they ran the study. The results are the results, and they've put them out
uses
there,
like 6 sigma. That is not. 0.017. I'm so upset.
But as long as there's not a claim that that's contrary to their data.
No.
If it's...
No, I mean, the take home that they're saying here is that personality predicts song type. And I honestly do not think that their data necessarily suggests that. I don't think that they have adequately shown that there is personality. Like, there are spectra, but their correlations are weak.
And I think that you bring up a really good point, that if one of the things you're measuring is the different types of elements that you have in a song, and another thing that you're measuring is aggressiveness, which is something that increases with age, then you have
with dominance, with like survivability, right?
So you have a problem here, because you will also learn more song types as you age. So you have to correct for age if you're going to do that. So I think that's, it sounded good on paper because it sounds like it should be right. Personality should impact songs. And I think that happens so often in these studies, where you come up with your result first and then you kind of try to backwards engineer to make your data show the thing that you want to be true. Because it makes sense. Yes, of course bird personalities should impact their songs naturally, but you have to do it right. You have to do the science right to actually prove that point correctly.
I love that they tried to include males and females, because males and females fairy wrens both sing. Like, that was a great system, but in terms of complexity, it added another variable that they would have been better served by using a simple system like zebra finches, or like a very simple song, like
just to name one, zebra finches. Just to name one.
Yeah.
Just
where
off
zebra
the top
finches,
of my head.
They have stereotyped songs, but there are very slight differences, but there's not a lot of variation, but are slight variations. So there are systems, models that could be used to better investigate this particular question. So I'm wondering if they had data and tried to do something with it. Anyway.
Who knows?
Anyway,
the study's out of Australia, so what do you really expect?
The conclusion's too much for the data.
Yeah.
I don't believe it. Birds have no personalities. Never mind.
We know that's not true.
It's probably the Australian accent that the birds have that's messing up the whole study.
Good day.
But birds get eaten by cats. And where did cats come from? Why? Why do they want to eat all the birds?
Why cats?
Why do cats?
So, yes. Prevalent theory on cats is that they just started following people around when we got into farming. And so that would have put the cat sort of domestication back 5 to 7 or more thousand years ago. And the idea of the Neolithic farmer going around and the cat.
We have pictures of cats in ancient Egypt on pharaoh laps, right?
That's not as long ago as you think it might be.
7 years ago. 7, yeah, whatever.
5 to 7 years ago, yeah.
Yeah. thousands years ago.
Exactly.
Oh, got it. 5 to 7 millennia is what you're trying to say. I got it.
So, yeah, anyway, the idea was the cats would sort of crawl around the human campfire, getting closer and closer to grab that little scrap of food and then run back off into the jungle or wherever they were. Or the steppes or the desert. So this has been I guess one of those things that people just didn't bother looking into too closely, even though we've got all this genomic thing. One, actually, with the genome, they actually had identified the species of cats that were sort of found in and around occasionally Neolithic sites, that they had maternal DNA similar to some modern domestic cats. The problem is that actually could have been introduced at any point, right? The maternal DNA could be introduced into the current European domestic cat at any point. It wouldn't have to be that far back. So anyway, they did a couple of really large-scale studies, 2 separate studies actually that this is covering. One is from University of Rome Tor Vergata, along with 42 institutions. The other one was from Exeter, and an accompaniment of another, I think, 30-something institutions. 2 completely separate studies. And they both did some deep genomic analysis of cats. They found some ancient cat bones, and they compared them to the modern, and did some also morphological analysis on what few ancient bones they could find of cats. And it turns out they think that the cats have only been showing up in Europe around the 1st century. One puts it back a little bit further to another 300 years, but within that 300-year span, they think cats got introduced to Europe. The cats also quickly sort of replaced the wild cats that existed in Europe. They were an invasive species. They either outcompeted them for resources or brought diseases with them. I think that the sort of interesting thing, though, is they think that this was largely cultural. So we're very familiar with the Egyptian cat worship practices. All right. Hang on, I gotta find what's the goddess or the Bastet?
Bastet. 5 to 7 years ago. Mm-hmm.
5 to 7 years ago in Egypt. Interestingly, they traced all of these cats. They think the origin from both studies both pointed back to Tunisia as the first domestication site of cats. But they think that it was also, there was in Greek, cats became symbols of Artemis and Diana in the Greek and Roman religious practices, sort of mirroring the religious or spiritual connection to deities. Turns out the Scandinavians had cats and Freya all mixed up.
Really?
So that what it looks like,
Yeah.
So what it looks like is that cats were likely part of ancient trade. They were sort of a coveted thing for, this cat. This is a cool thing that kids will love to see this. It's also maybe has this spiritual context to it, a religious context to it. And so there might have been this domestic cat trade going back almost 2,000 years. Before that, no evidence that people were running around with cats. They didn't start out because they were handy around the farm, getting rid of the rodents. It was more of a novelty thing. Even then, you wonder why cats are so comfortable living without any job?
They've never
had one.
Yes.
They've never had it. Dogs had to do all kinds of work, so they want to nip at heels or dig holes in the backyard and do all kinds of stuff. They were trained to do a thing. I was designed. Cats are like, no, I'm a trinket.
I'm a trinket.
I'm a commodity. I'm a religious figure, sort of.
I would love to know the thoughts. Honestly, that's not Garfield.
It sounds like Farm Cat came way later.
Well, farm cats don't actually statistically kill that many rodents. They kill a lot more birds and lizards.
But not big rodents. But if there are small mice, if there are small organisms, the grasshoppers, they probably did a great job against the locust swarms. Do you
Yeah,
imagine
I mean,
a
the
cat
problem is...
distracted by a locust swarm? Like,
The problem is that cats are predators. They're evolutionary descendants of predators. Predators sleep 20 hours a day. They hunt once, make a big kill, don't hunt again for a long time. They
Isn't
are
it
often
mountain
also
lions?
solitary.
Yeah, isn't it mountain lions where they will make a big kill and it becomes a place where they come back to feed
Mhm.
off and
Yep.
on over a couple of days before the meat goes bad.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep,
so if you
yep.
see something as you're hiking that looks like it was taken down by a mountain lion, go away.
Yeah.
Do not stay there.
And sometimes,
Yeah.
sometimes they will make a kill and just leave it and go off and make another kill. Because the first kill is if there's other predators around. Like if there's wolves around. They'll make a kill
so
and then as a sort of
they've done
distraction.
studies where well, it's a distraction, but also they have really high abandonment. So they'll give up really easily on a kill, even if they did intend to eat it. If they think there's any disturbance, they're like, no,
Yeah, just-
I give up.
So like in the
No.
situation in Berkeley, California, where the squirrels are, like, was it squirrels eating mice and rats or something? There was, because there's like a surplus of
Mhm.
organisms to eat, right? I'm just wondering, cats, great predators, do they just have such confidence in their abilities that they're like, yeah, I'll get another one? But if food is scarce, are they less likely to give up their kill?
Interesting.
Are they more likely to guard their kill, even though they're a predator? So
I would assume so.
I would, yeah, but I'd love to
definitely
know,
assume so.
like, personality and resource availability aspects of the situation.
Yeah. I also think like part of this cat trade, because like you pointed out, like there were wild cats and they're ferocious and they're predators and they kill stuff. Like you can't befriend a lynx or a bobcat or a whatever ocelot, is that one? Whatever the small wild.
A snow leopard.
Yes, yeah. Snow
The
leopards
really small ones. Yeah, I'm talking about the small things, the little ones.
Yeah, servals. Yeah.
Did you try, Blair, when you worked at the zoos? Did you try to make friends with the wildcats?
I was friendly with them, but no, I never tried to make friends with any of the cats.
They didn't
And
hurt
then
you
you
like
show up with
oh.
a domesticated cat. And it must just look like such a powerful and maybe frightening thing. Like I can imagine people being terrified of your domestic cat, thinking it's got that same level as one of those
a baby
wild cats.
panther. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm enjoying this, the end of this paper. Humans have been influencing wildcat populations for millennia. In some cases, they have facilitated range expansion by deliberately introducing wildcats to islands, as seems to be the case in Neolithic Cyprus, blah, 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 Sardinia, blah, blah, blah. People have instigated the contraction of wildcat range through overhunting and anthropogenic environmental degradation. The negative impact of domestic cats on wildcat populations is recognized today, and our study suggests this computation has a greater time depth than previously recognized. Our cats are competing with the wildcats because we let them outside and don't keep them inside where they should be.
But you don't, Kiki, right?
No, I leave my cats inside.
Yeah.
We did have a weird screen door issue where my cat knocked it over and got outside, but I immediately, upon knowing that my cat was not inside, brought her inside. And she was puffed up like a scared little animal. She was not a dominant predator.
Like, what is this, out of doors? Absolutely not.
Oh my gosh. They want to go there, but then they get there and they have no idea what to do.
I have a neighbor who I've watched over the last 2 years train their cat to walk on a leash, and it's the most amazing thing. I see them walk the cat all the time, and the cat walks on the leash like a dog, and it's a very responsible way to bring your cat outside.
We had
Takes
it.
hard
That's
work,
a great way.
but-
right? You take your animal outside on a leash, like the dog should be on a leash. And sometimes your cats just show up and they go to the bathroom in your toilet, and you go, what? And they just know what to do with it.
Yeah.
That happened with our cat Psycho in college. I've told this story long ago.
I've looked into the kit that you can get to train the cat to go to the bathroom in the toilet. It's pretty funny. Anyway.
All right, so Tunisia, cat domestication.
That's where they came from.
They're awesome. We're going to, keep them around, and we're going to use them to get rid of wild cats and use them as part of our environmental domination plan.
Here, take this basket with a hissing chainsaw in it. Small one.
It's not a snake.
Figure it out.
I'm sure this last story of yours, Justin, is short and sweet and
uplifting.
Yeah, good news. Uplifting. It's a good news story. Preventable pregnancy deaths. This is researchers from the National Cancer Institute, Harvard Medical School, Boston Children's Hospital, Technical University of Munich, Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, working together, although they've all probably been defunded by now, have found that 2,679 pregnancy-related deaths in the United States could have been avoided. Oh, could have been avoided. Maybe it wasn't a good story.
Not, they were avoided. Yeah.
2018 and 2022.
Are we going to talk
the United
about
States ranks
before?
The United States ranks the highest among high-income countries for maternal mortality, creating a major public health concern. And according to this, the state-based maternal mortality review committees suggest that more than 80% of these deaths that are occurring could have been prevented.
Gosh darn it.
Some of the things that they notice is that rural counties experience 1.7 times higher rates than large metropolitan counties. Rates are 2 to 3 times higher in non-Hispanic, Black, and African American or Alaska Native populations compared with white populations. Also, where you live in the country itself can make quite a big difference. The rate with the lowest number of pregnancy-related deaths was California at 18.5 per 100,000, compared to Alabama, which had the highest crude rate at 59.7, followed by Mississippi at 58.2. So, yeah. Anyway,
I think it's good to say this is
before.
And this is the rate per 100,000 live births.
What?
Before Roe v. Wade and all of the.
It is. Yep.
So this was before we lost the national right to abortion. So I'm very scared for the new numbers.
There won't be
we
any.
already know that there are new numbers. Yeah, there won't be, right?
Yeah.
The reporting systems have now been dismantled.
You're right.
There won't be new numbers, and then we won't have any more cases. If we stop testing, we won't have more cases.
We learned that like 4 years ago, right?
That's how science works.
Mm-hmm. Somebody told us that with a big Sharpie marker.
Anyway, a lot of these, though, cardiovascular disorders was the leading contributor to late maternal deaths. This is another thing this is one of the first studies that had sort of tracked maternal mortality like in the year after as well, not just in the course of giving birth. So that was also a thing. Like, part of this is going to be follow-ups. How good is the follow-up care in like a rural community versus a larger metropolitan area, that sort of thing.
But the follow-up care, that's incredibly important. But I think in the rural communities, what you're dealing with are not enough hospitals, not enough like close by experts for, midwifery or nursing or, pre or during pregnancy care. So you have individuals who become pregnant. Maybe they have pre-existing conditions, but it's maybe 3-4 hours to drive to a hospital, maybe longer. Maybe they can't get appointments. Maybe they don't, we have the Insurance Act that allows us more people to have insurance, but at the same time, maybe people don't have good coverage, so they're going to have to pay out of pocket, and maybe they're impoverished and they're not able to pay out of pocket, so they don't go. And maybe they're depending on family and friends, but that's not the kind of care that they need. And with things like diabetes, with things like processed food in our diets, and the communities that eat things that are not good for their health, that are living in poverty, so they don't have all the things that have put them in the best health situation before being pregnant. You enter pregnancy at a diminished state, and that if you don't get the care during and the monitoring during that process, you don't know if something's going wrong until it's too late. I mean, I feel like there's just... Yeah, Eric Knapp is saying in rural Alaska, getting to a hospital involves an airplane.
Right. It's going to be tough.
Yeah. And they do say in this, like in the abstract here, Alaska Native women and American Indian had the highest ASR, pregnancy-related mortality, aggregated rate of pregnancy-related mortality. It's too much. It's too much. And why? Why the United States? Why?
Oh, because our medical system is a for-profit system and not a for-people system. Is that what?
You mean
the question?
Because capitalism?
Capitalism is fine. Like, and the problem...
You're so wrong about that, Justin. Don't even worry.
Hang on. The problem I have with that is
capitalism isn't necessarily the problem. I think Justin's absolutely nailed it there. Public health being for profit, not for people.
Right, and I think it that hurts capitalism in the long run. Like, if you have a healthy society, there are less sick days. There are less people who need long-term disability care. Like, if you have a healthy infrastructure, it's good for capitalism.
But in late-stage capitalism, you have less health care via your employer. You have less ability to take sick days. You have less sick time. You have less paternity and maternity leave.
But Blair,
you have all of these things.
Can I just point out? We are not in late-stage capitalism. We are in end-stage. That we grew up in late stage capitalism. That's what that was. That's not what we've got now. End stage capitalism. Anyway, on that lightest of possible notes,
a healthy government, a healthy democracy, a healthy social structure would support people to be able to live and work in a healthy way, to support the economy, to support their families. Like that makes sense. But we are in, like you said, end stage. We're not making sense anymore. There is just theft of profit.
There are some things that can be for profit, and there are some things that should not. And that's in a pure capitalist environment, everything is for profit. And that is what, when I attack capitalism, that is what I'm talking about, is that there are so many things that do not need to be for profit that are, and when that happens, things run away, and there are not controls on things that every human should have access to.
But I don't think of capitalism as that, because part of it is you have to have rules and regulations to have a capitalist system in the first place.
And so, there's the free market, right? Like go, do whatever you want, capitalism. But then you have capitalism within a society where you have needs of the society, and so that people are enabled to have a good state of life, which our Constitution and our Declaration of Independence is like, hey, the pursuit of happiness. If we're going to have
white
that,
men who own land specifically.
I know. However, yes,
Okay.
that caveat. But
Okay.
That said,
Fair enough.
we have a governmental structure to provide regulations, to provide a network, an infrastructure for the support of its people, so that the entire society and the capitalistic efforts and the economy, all of it works well inside of it. And so it has to be balanced.
Right.
But when you let
exactly,
but when you
so that's and I think that's my point. I think that's
it is
my
your
point.
point. I totally hear it.
Yeah. For instance, I would also put in anti-bribery laws are not, in one definition are like, oh, that's not capitalism. You should be able to the police officer should show up and say, okay, who here is the most guilty? Hand it over. Or the least guilty. Hand over whoever's got the highest stack of bills will be. We have anti-bribery so that we can maintain capitalism. If you have rampant bribery in your highest political office, you lose capitalism and you lose democracy.
Hence why we have anti-monopolistic laws. Hence why we have that was a terrible one that we did that allowed corporations
anti-monopoly laws and high taxes on the top earners
and
are
why people in the government should not be able to be influenced by investments and stocks,
Citizens United
trading.
Is that what you're talking about?
Citizens United, that's a problem. Anyway, we're not talking politics because you know what? Oh, no, that's wrong too. Science and politics. No, we are, because science and politics have always gone together. They're hand in hand because they are both parts of our society. Politics is how we govern ourselves. Science is how we improve ourselves, how we add knowledge to the world. So they work together. They're human endeavors, and they are parts of the system that supports our society and makes it better. Yeah, sometimes we got religion too, but then there's dogma, and then there's so many rules. Oh my gosh. Anyway, the pregnancy issue is one that's bothered me for a really long time. The fact that we are one of the most developed countries in the world, and we have one of the lowest maternal survival rates, highest maternal mortality rates. This should bother everyone. And I don't think you're conservative, you're liberal. Bringing life into the world is a gift. It's wonder. It's amazing. We are creating life. How amazing is that? And we're just allowing people to go away. And the fact that our system doesn't fix that when we have the ability to is a travesty. I was going to talk about people with autism and touch, and how they discern a perceived touch differently from adults that are neuronormal. The average adult can discern active touch versus passive touch, where you're in control of active touch. I'm reaching out, I'm going to touch something. Oh, it's great. Your brain discerns that. People who also passive touch, where something touches you or someone touches you, you're not in control of it. That's different. Your brain is more active during passive touch because it's surprising, it's different, it's a novel stimulus, and your brain has to figure it out, right? It's, ooh, mystery. Ooh, what's that touch? What? In the brains of people with autism, they measured brain responses of 30 neurotypical adults, 29 adults with autism. participating in active and passive touch tasks in this EEG study, in which they used VR. They put EEG caps on people, and they used VR environments. So in the VR environment, it's like, ooh, VR hand is coming to touch you, or the individual controlled a hand in the VR environment to go and touch something else. They measured brain stimuli. Neurotypical adults, like I said, had the differentiation between the two different types of touch. People with autism did not. And their brains reacted pretty much in the same way, whether or not it was active or passive. And so the researchers are suggesting that this differentiation is really important for understanding how, especially with autism, where like stimming and other tactile inputs can be calming or be part of their behavioral repertoire to deal with overstimulation in various environments. And then potentially it can go to a place where it becomes self-harming, where the movements, the stimming, the reaction to touch is actually harmful and damaging. They can hurt themselves. So understanding how sensory suppression occurs in the brain or doesn't in autistic adults is really important for understanding their perception of the world and how they deal with it to be able to enable their active participation in the world. And so all of the people that were in the study were adults, no kids. So the autistic adults that they worked with had already probably come up with behavioral ways to manage perceptual touch. So they're looking at this difference between adults, neurotypical autistic adults, and how they responded to stuff. And the next question is whether or not there is as much, or is there potentially even more of a difference when it comes to children with autism who have not yet learned how to manage their perceptions. So potentially understanding where these behaviors come from and how they develop and how they are, depending on the level of the autism spectrum that somebody is on, how that impacts their perception of the world and their ability to exist within it. Okay, so happy, good news. La 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 la. We got mail. Ah! I don't really read emails all the time from people, but we had several, and I wanted to share them with everybody. So before we go, I'm going to read a couple emails. First email, remember our conversation about avocados and freezing avocados? And it was a couple of weeks ago.
Can you freeze an avocado?
I don't remember. I've blacked out this memory completely.
Yeah, before you were not here last week, we were talking about guacamole and avocados. Milady Carol wrote in and said, I have scientific research on freezing avocados to share. As a homesteader in Australia, I grow and process lots of food. While I don't grow my own avocados, there's definitely a season where they are more affordable here. When that happens, I cut, pit, and scoop all the green goodness into a bowl, mash them, make them into guacamole. The resulting guac is then canted into my silicone cupcake molds, frozen, and then stored in zip bags for use whenever nachos and huevos rancheros are required. Are those good in Australia? I hope you make good ones, milady. They defrost perfectly, and since Mexican food here is gravely diluted into a few sad fast food chains, friends here thoroughly enjoy a more flavorful Mexifeast at my place. So frozen fresh guac and salsa are needful. I'd be careful freezing whole avocados, as I suspect they won't defrost well. It would be like freezing a whole pumpkin. I always skin, seed, and puree them before freezing too. While they are limited to those less solid forms in future use, they are perfectly fresh, hold nutrients, and are delish. Thank you for all you do. I've been with you since the invention of podcasts, so my love for TWIS runs deep. Peace, love, and laughter, lady.
Nice.
Thank you for that, Lady Carol.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have another one. This is from Beth, and Beth says, I've been listening to TWIS as a podcast for a few years now. I had some health issues that resulted in having way more time on my hands than I've had in quite a long time. So between TWIS and All Creatures, you've all been the antidote to the long days of just me and the fur babies that left me lonely for human interaction. I actually took a little break from TWIS for a little while. So I've been playing catch up recently and just listened to episode 983 tonight. And this was a couple of weeks ago. As a Pennsylvania girl living in California, I miss fireflies so much, especially as the weather gets warmer and you can sit outside at night. So the study that Blair brought about the orb weavers catching the fireflies caught my interest so much that I finally gotten the kick in the pants that I needed to write to you. I'm pretty sure Blair said that the male fireflies have 2 lights to the female's 1. If this is a physiological difference, and if the spider hasn't actually killed... I lost my place. Hold on. And killed the male firefly while somehow making them imitate a female's single light. What if the spider incapacitates one of the male firefly's lights? As I'm writing this, I'm thinking I should probably have read the study and researched the anatomy of a firefly before writing, which I'm going to do right after I send this. At least it finally got me excited enough to share my thoughts with you all that I finally wrote you. I feel as if I know you all after listening to most of your shows over the last several years, so I just wanted to share a little bit of myself with you and share my firefly thoughts. Darn those spiders for eating on the absolute coolest insects. Well, in my opinion. Thanks so much for sharing science with the world in the way that you do. I'm sure I'm only one of many who appreciate you for keeping me in the loop when I've been feeling so far removed from the scientific community. Peace, Beth.
Thanks, Beth. I don't remember.
I put you on the spot with that one.
We got to look it up too.
Yeah. But it's a great question. Like, what was actually happening there? And thank you for the Ship of Theseus meme, Matthew Stafford. That was enjoyable. You were right. We did appreciate it. So thank you for that. Blair is looking up the Firefly story as we're coming to the end of the show right now. If anybody is, feeling bored, you want to email us, we haven't set our email addresses for a while. You email me at kirsten@thisweekinscience.com. Tell a story, respond to a story, whatever, We'll put that in the last bit of the show here. Justin, what's your email address?
twisminion@gmail.com.
Blair?
BlairBaz@twist.org. Yes, we all have different suffixes. I don't know why. It's just how it is.
I gave Justin one a long time ago.
No matter who you are emailing, you have to put TWIS somewhere in the subject line. Otherwise, it will be automatically spam filtered into oblivion.
You're skipping ahead, my man.
He is. I was giving Blair a chance to look up Firefly.
Kiki.
But I was just saying, since we were talking about emails, I honestly, I would love to hear from you all. Send emails, respond to stuff. It would be great. Wouldn't it be fun to do an occasional, email bag? Da, da, da. We got mail. Okay,
I found it.
You did.
Or you can just call in during the show. Kiki's phone number.
Don't you dare.
Hang on, let me bring it up. I gotta.
So, orb weaving spiders manipulate the flashing signals of male fireflies ensnared. Third time's the charm in its web, so that they mimic the typical flashes of a female firefly. They ensnare them. They predispose the entrapped male firefly to broadcast bioluminescent signals that deviate from female attracting signals typically made by males, and instead mimic the male attracting signals made by females. Let's see.
Makes the males bring in the males.
So the ensnared males use single pulse signals only, using one of their lanterns, not both. Signal made by male.
Wasn't it part of our conversation though? We were like, how does that happen?
A lot more like the signals of free females. Yeah, I don't know.
Blair's going to figure it out by next week, for sure.
Yeah, I'll report back next week. How about that? I'll put this in the mailbag for next week.
Awesome. Response to the mailbag next week. Unless, Beth, you actually did go down that rabbit hole, please send an email.
She might already know.
And answer the question. All right, everyone. We are going to close the show now. Thank you so much for listening. I think I just got excited to have my friends back in the room again this week.
It's been a while.
Yeah. I'm glad your internet worked tonight, Justin. That's really wonderful. Fada, thank you for your help with social media. Gord, Arnlor, others, thank you for manning the chat rooms. Everyone in the chat room, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Identity 4, thank you for recording the show. Rachel, thank you for editing the show. And of course, it's time to thank our Patreon sponsors. Thank you to Robert W. Farley, Lauren Gifford, Dana Lewis, Eden Mundell, Alan Viola, Aaron Anathema, Arthur Kepler, Craig Botts, Mary Gertz, Teresa Smith, Richard Badge, Bob Coles, Kent Northcote, George Corris, Pierre Velazar, John Watswamy, Chris Wozniak, Figured Chefstad, Donathan Styles, aka Don Silo, Ali Coffin, Shubru, Sarah Forfar, Don Mundus, PIG, Stephen Alberon, Andrew Swanson, Fredis 104, Sky Luke, Paul Ronovich, Kevin Reardon, Noodles, Jack Bryan, Carrington, David Youngblood, Sean Clarence Lamb, John McKee, Greg Riley, Mark Hessenflow, Steve Leisman, aka Zima, Ken Hayes, Howard Tan, Christopher Robin, Richard, Brenda Minish, Johnny Gridley, Remy Day, G. Britton Lattimore, Flying Out, Christopher Dreyer, RDM, Greg Briggs, John Atwood, Rudy Garcia, Dave Wilkinson, Rodney Lewis, Paul Philip Shane, Kurt Larson, Craig Landon, Sue Doster, Jason Old, Steve Neighbor, Eric Knapp, Lon Makes, EO, Adam Mishkon, Kevin Parachan, Aaron Luthen, Bob Calder, Marjorie, Paul Jesse, Patrick Pecoraro, and Tony Steele. Thank you for all of your support on Patreon. If you would like me to stumble over your name, please head over to twist.org and click on that Patreon link and support us at the $10 or more per month level. On next week's show, we'll be speaking with Natan Shafar from Standard Carbon about recent advancements in carbon capture and storage. So don't miss it. It seems like a good solutions level interview for the week of Earth Day. We'll be back.
So then we will be back Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific Time, broadcasting live from our Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook channels.
Want to listen to us as a podcast? Perhaps while you clean up all of the orb weaver webs around your home? Just search for This Week in Science wherever podcasts are found. If you enjoyed the show, get your friends to subscribe as well.
For more information on anything you heard here today, show notes, links to stories will be available on our website, which is www.twis.org. And you can sign up for a newsletter that we promise never to send.
I don't promise.
Not like those pesky newsletters that keep filling your email inbox. You're like, oh,
just too many.
I don't want it.
I don't want to spam
We won't
people.
send it.
But we might.
Ever. Nope. Never.
We
will never send it.
Love your feedback. If there's a topic you would like us to cover or address, or a suggestion for an interview, please let us know on one of our social media accounts if we still have any. Or what's better is you can just send us an email, as we previously discussed. Just be sure to put TWIS, TWIS, in your subject line. Your email will be spam filtered into the dirt amongst some truffles, and some gorillas might find it, but they won't get it to us. So
they're too lazy.
Yeah.
Not interested. Not our friends.
Can't be bothered. We look forward to discussing science with you again next week. And if you learned anything from the show, remember,
it's all in your head.
This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. 'Cause this science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth, and I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in 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 Science.